The Bible and a great deal of Jesus' sayings reflect images of the character of people and cultures and provide lessons for humanity, many of them holding up through the test of time. And the text for preaching commentary on our lectionary reading puts it like this. Often the Bible acts as a mirror, throwing back to us reflections of ourselves or our culture and the characters and conversations on the page. The questions asked, the attitudes exposed, the priorities held seem amazingly modern. We still use the Bible because its age-old reflections reflect concerns and issues that are relevant in our time. In the Bible, there are thoughts on how best to achieve well-being for self, for others, and for creation. That's what religion is about, how to best relate to self, others, and creation. In our faith tradition, we can understand all those things are in God because, as Paul writes, God is that which we live and move and have our being in. And as a consequence, we can understand Jesus' way, Christianity, to aim toward achievement of universal well-being through good relationship with God in all things. And Jesus' teaching in our lesson act as a mirror, allowing us to see where we are and where we need to go to achieve them. The promise, peace on earth, goodwill to all. And while today's reading has a reflection held up by Jesus, it is actually a very dim reflection without contextual help. Americans tend not to want to consider the reflection, and even if they do, will find it hard to see what it is they are looking at. And so I'm going to layer in some context this morning. In Jesus' day, he and his followers and the great majority of people in Palestine were very, very poor. Daily bread was an uncertainty. That's why Jesus taught his followers to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." And I assume and pray and hope that all of us here today do not worry about where our day's food will come from. But there are a lot of people in the world who do. In our nation, there are men and women and children for whom adequate food, water, shelter, and health care are constant concerns. And consequently, they and many others in the world lack well-being. And today, as I mentioned, at 4 o'clock, there's a 50th anniversary gathering for Interchurch Social Services of Knox County. Interchurch is an amazing effort by churches in the area to address these constant concerns in our community. Many churches, including ours, understand that Christian actions and prayers and hope need to include not only that we do not have to worry about our daily bread, but that the day comes when no one in the community, the nation, or the world has to. And Jesus' teachings clearly indicate that we need to act on such prayers and hopes as those who are a part of organizations like Interchurch do. The reason is that God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven depends on our acts. And in our lesson that Robin read so well, we hear Jesus asking a rich person to do such an act. Jesus asks him to give up his wealth and give it to the poor. And shortly after, we hear Jesus say it is unlikely for anyone who is rich to get into heaven. And those words of Jesus make us uncomfortable because when we hear the reflection he's holding up, we think we might see ourselves and need to change so we do better. We might have to do an act for God that we don't want to do. Religions as a rule, and Jesus' way in particular, suggests we could do better, a lot better. And while that is true, the heart of Jesus' lesson in its context is not actually about wealth per se. It is a call to step out of ways of oppression and onto Jesus' way that acts to oppose and to end oppression. The reflection held up by Jesus is meant to show that there are systems of oppression, that humans are in them, and that following Jesus' way requires us to get out of them and to oppose them. We hear the lesson to be against riches, and most Americans don't want to hear that. So churches often look past this text or gloss over it. But the message is much, much bigger than that. It's about systemic oppression being in the way of Jesus' way, in the way of God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven. A participation in oppression keeps God's empire, heaven on earth, from fully breaking in. Opposing oppression helps it break in. And systems of oppression, legally or as a matter of cultural custom, have built-in inequalities that favor the provision of access to fundamental rights to some, but not to others. And such systems exist today. In our nation, there has been a call from the very start to step out of them and oppose them. There have always been different ideas, left, center, and right, about how to best do it. And different ideas are okay, but to follow Jesus' lead, more than ideas are needed. The ideas need to lead to actions that end oppression. Women, people of color, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, people with low incomes need to have the system changed to stop oppression. We need anything in our way of doing things that oppresses anyone. Those ways need to be opposed. We need to step off those ways that allow impediments to rights. Rights some have, but not all have full access to. And as a secular rule, it may be that not everyone agrees we need to do that. But Jesus' religious teaching today suggests that to follow him is to work on doing just that. Jesus' teachings took place while the Holy Land was occupied by Caesar, who claimed to be the Son of God and ran the world, as I mentioned before. Caesar ran his empire in deeply embedded patron-client system. It was akin to the mafia power structure in the Godfather movies, with 1,000,000 times more violence and sinfulness. The mafia power structure is a vestige of the patron-client structure of Rome, where Caesar was thought to be both God and father to absolutely everyone. And in the Godfather movies, the heads of mob families bless and broker all lives that fall within their family system. And they do this by ruthlessly overseeing levels of bosses and lieutenants that in turn ruthlessly govern and protect and provide for those in the system. Imagine that system on a massive scale, with Caesar as the godfather, and the bosses and lieutenants as centurions and governors and kings and religious leaders and rich patrons throughout the empire, each owing allegiance on up the chain of hierarchy. Imagine that all the peasants owe allegiance to all those patrons above them. Jesus lived in such a culture, with that oppressive system ruling almost everyone. About 80% of the population were peasants, dependent on powerful overlord patrons who maximized the system for wealth, causing virtually all those peasants to live on the very margins of existence. To be rich in Jesus' time and place, a person had to be high up in that system that brokered all power and wealth, and did so ruthlessly, oppressing most of the population. By and large, rich people, like the fellow in our story, could not be rich in the Roman Empire without being in that chain, without paying homage to Caesar, and without oppressing those below their tier in the hierarchy. Peasants, all of them, in abject poverty, got just enough to survive, no more. But even that was conditioned on the peasant having something to offer their wealthy patron. those not able or willing or allowed to offer something to a rich person in exchange for daily bread became expendable. And injury, age, disease, social status could do it. Every peasant, depending on the fragile hope of work for the day and payment for the work, had to worry about becoming expendable and being moved out of the patron system. A system relied upon by almost everyone in the culture, rich and poor. Peasants who became expendable had no patron motivated to provide them protection or meager wages. They fell out of the system. These are the beggars and the homeless. These are persons who might do the jobs no one else will do, like tax collecting. These are persons who count for nothing, like prostitutes. And the list of expendables included Jesus. And Jesus included the expendables. In all the early written accounts of Jesus, he is recalled as living outside the system of brokered power and economy of the Roman Empire. He was an itinerant teacher who scrounged for a living, and he encouraged others to do so as well. And the Gospels show Jesus inviting people to give up their place in the web of brokerage and become a beggar like him. Jesus asked fishermen to leave their boats and follow him. He asked tax collector to give up his booth and follow him. And in today's lesson, he asks a rich person to leave his place in the system and follow him. And what all of this tells us is that Jesus is hanging out with expendables, and he was an expendable, and he asked others to become expendables, and he did this as a part of his ministry. Why? Jesus figured out expendables had something no one else in the entire Roman Empire had. They were outside the system. They had no allegiance to the Roman Empire's brokerage and patronage. Jesus understood the imperial's way that ensnared almost everyone else was avoidable by those outside it. Rome's way was not their way. And Jesus gets that. And he takes advantage of that by creating a new way, a parallel path to life that doesn't see Caesar as the ultimate godfather figure at the top of the system that oppresses almost everyone. Jesus' way is outside the world's way. It unoppresses expendables and peasants by lifting all people up. But that also means it unoppresses the wealthy too. Everyone is loved and matter much. And by lifting up all people, as Jesus points out, the first become last, and the last become first, which played out as an endless loop. There can be no last, and there can be no first. All are equal. Jesus' way lifts everyone up. There's no first because they are always last, and there's no last because they are always first. This happens when there's no human Godfather. On Jesus' way, our Godfather is in heaven. God's kingdom, not Caesar's, is what we pray for. It is God's will we want done, not Caesar's. And so we ask God our Father for our daily bread, to forgive our debts, to keep us out of, and deliver us from trouble. And when Jesus tells the rich person to step out of the system of oppression to follow him, he's holding up a mirror to his followers. That includes us to likewise step out of such systems and to oppose and in oppression. And what the rich person ironically lacks is lacking something. We hear it as his needing to lack money, and that's true, but only because in the context his lacking his wealth meant he would be out of the system that only lets Caesar be God and Father, out of a system that ruthlessly oppresses 80% of the people. He lacking the oppressive system. He is a part and parcel to. He had to be in the system, in the Roman Empire, in order to be rich. Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said, you lack one thing, go sell what you own and give the money to the poor and you will have treasure in heaven, then come and follow me. And the rich person goes away very, very sad. And then Jesus makes sure to point out it is not just that wealthy person in the system he is concerned about. Everyone with wealth back then participated in Caesar's oppressive system, not just gathering wealth, but facilitating that oppression. They created their wealth, and they were living off of it. And so Jesus says how hard it will be for those who have wealth to enter the kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God. And the disciples are confused by this. Like today, wealth back then was considered by many to be a sign that the person was blessed by God. And Jesus, with pointed humor, dispels that theological presumption, the absurd notion that wealth is an expression of God's preference for those with it is met with an absurd truth. It's easier, Jesus says, for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. But the disciples still don't get it, thinking that if a rich person with all those blessings can't enter heaven, they say, then who can be saved? And Jesus looked at them and said, for mortals it is impossible, but for God all things are possible. And then Peter points to how the disciples gave up everything and followed him, and Jesus notes that those who do that receive 100-fold now and in eternity. But he adds, many who are first will be last, and the last will be first. And that inline captures the essence of Jesus' way in God's realm. God makes the impossible possible in a loop of love that keeps everyone from being first and last. A loop of love that makes everyone of equal value. Think of the image we get when we put a mirror up to a mirror, the reflecting the reflection. When Jesus' way plays out, the first are always last, and the last are always first, in an unending loop of no hierarchy, which is another way to say all are equal. In order to get there, we have to end systems of oppression by leaving them and following Jesus and acting to oppose and end oppression as he modeled. Participation in systems of oppression keep God's empire, heaven on earth, from fully breaking in. Systems of oppression, legally or as a matter of cultural custom, have built-in inequalities that favor the provision of access to fundamental rights to some, but not to others. We are a part of such systems. Women, people of color, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, people with low incomes, they're placed last in various ways, and the system needs to be changed to stop their oppression and anyone else's oppression. In whatever non-violent way we feel God calls us, we need to work to step off ways that allow impediments to anyone's rights and do the work needed so that all have, without question, full access to them. As a secular rule, it may be that not everyone on the left or in the center or on the right agrees that we need to do that, but Jesus' teaching today is that to follow him means working on doing just that. And we can certainly differ on how best to do that work, but we need to do it